Hello and welcome to Macro Mondays here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is January 13th, 2025, and we're looking at Bitcoin as always and following up with where we left off on Friday's video. We're going to take a look at the daily, of course, with a big move down on the Sunday candle into the Monday candle. And then we'll discuss what the weekly looks like, as the weekly didn't close great, but we have some hope for the bulls in this case in the shorter term time frames. Don't confuse that with the daily time frame just yet. Bitcoin did dip into our zone, and we did see a front run of the areas that we talked about on Friday. So we have our $92,000 area to the upside, which is the close open on the daily over here. Of course, this was prior resistance flipped into support. We did see the top side of this area fail as a support on Sunday. Bitcoin got that nice continuation down into Monday's candle to sweep the low over here on a 12-hour and 4-hour time frame. I'm going to show you something really interesting about the close opens right there. So, I'd mentioned that if Bitcoin did lose 92K, we're likely going to test into the zone and be aware of some of the swing lows. And then, of course, this closing low. And if Bitcoin were to lose on a close, the 1.168 bear market fib extension. So essentially the high at 69K down to the low at $15,500 here on Coinbase spot. Then, that's where we're, looking lower, especially if it closes below there. If it didn't already wick down further to, somewhere around 87 to 87 and a half, we would have to pay attention to $85,000. Now, Bitcoin did initiate this nice move into this support here and bounced right back out. So it's good to see that for the bulls, but they're not out of the woods yet. They do need to go up and take out this high up here at around $96,000. So right around $96,000 where you see we had this swing high here. We saw that there was some lows setting here. We saw a little bit of resistance kind of flipping to support. There's many other areas of interest that you can draw in terms of the daily support resistance levels. I'm going to show you why this is an area that I'm interested in, not just structurally, but with other confluences for this range in just a moment. But in order to break this downtrend now, we do need to see Bitcoin take out $96,000. Head up, take out essentially $100,000 here. We see that we have this area as a common area of overhead resistance on the daily where we did get pivots in price action. So right around $100,000 to then go test, in my opinion, a pretty strong overhead resistance zone between 101 and 104 here, right by that 1272. So the 27.2% above $69,000 in the fib extension up here as our confluence. Above 104, then we can start looking back to the close open at 106 to $108,000, as in just basically all the stuff that I said on Friday. We don't need to dive too deep into that, but I want to show you a confluence for kind of the mid zone here, and I'm going to show it to you in two ways here. So we're going to pull a fib for this particular high structure to this wick low over here at $85,000. And what you will see is that the 50% of this particular pull is right here at 95,900. And we have 95,862 to 96,150 as kind of the zone just overhead here that we would like to see Bitcoin close above, obviously, the top side of that, and get back above the 50% level. So that would look really good for the bulls structurally in terms of a trend break. But also it would look really good to get back above the 50% fib here for this structure that I'm showing you here now. Now you're going to see that if it does put in a low, you can kind of take the structure and the downtrending structure here and kind of paste that on there. And, if this is going to remain the low. But in this case, it's still playing below a major fib level, and that's the 382. So if you were to pull it the other way, it's a 618, right? If you were going to pull it from the one spot down here to the zero up here, which you would actually get the retracement levels, Fibonacci retracement levels that would be bullish in that case. And then it takes out the zero read for continuation. In this case, we're pulling it the opposite way because it is still a downtrend, and it really doesn't matter. You can just flip it back and forth. All you need to know is that the inverted numbers for the 618 and 382 are the same. Depending on which way you pull it, this would be the 618 in that same area where that 50% is. And then there's another way we can pull the fibs. I don't know why I deleted it. I could just kept it. We can take the top side of our resistance to the bottom side of our support here at that 88,700, so that primary support level, and you'll see that again we have a 50%. So for the full structure and then the smaller support and resistance consolidation structure zones, we have the 50% coming in the same area. So we're getting a lot of confluences. That does mean that we need to see Bitcoin, of course, beat that area out to the upside on a closing basis for the daily here. Something interesting to note on lower term timeframes is that if we were going to go ahead and add the swing structures here and the closing structure in here before getting to that swing low at the 1.168 at 88,700 or so, then we can go ahead and man, it is so freaking dead on perfect, by the way. If you weren't paying attention at the time, because this is a bear market fib pull extension, the 1.168 at 88,713, this wick is at 88,713. That's how good that fib level was on the way up. Of course, it did also act as resistance and then flip back into support. Top side of this zone here, where this close open came in, was the prior resistance, flipped into support on a close open, then front run, and then we dipped in, right? So I would say it's pretty important, these levels. But if we were to add on the swings and the close in here, I want to show you how the close opens occurred in lower term timeframes, because I think it is important to kind of understand, because I work based on, my analysis is based on conditions, and those conditions either being met or not met on closes generally. Lower term timeframes, yeah, you can go with the swings, but for continuation and or reversals, we're looking for closes. And let me go ahead and turn on those three levels. Yeah, I did have them off. And just show you on the lower term time frames. We'll go to the 12-hour, for instance. And I want you to see that this is the 12-hour here. Sorry. That's the daily. Let's go to the 12-hour. And we're already on it. We had a close open right at this swing low right here. We did get a swing through. We got the close open right there, but we got the the wick almost down to the next swing over here. But interestingly, if you go to like the 4-hour, you'll see the same thing. And then if you start to go to the 2-hour, you see the same thing, right on that swing low, right, but basically halfway into this range essentially. If we go to the hourly, you see just about the same kind of a look. We start going down to the 15-minute, you see that this area was the area that bulls wanted to hold around that 90,500 to 600 area on closes. We did get the nice big move down on the swing, which even though it was a swing lower low, it was a nice closing higher low, took out the lower high, put in a higher high, higher low, trend reversal setup, and then higher high. We're looking for another higher low if we want to see this start to work its way up towards this $96,000 area overhead. So that's the next big test for the bulls, is if on any kind of drawdown, if they can hold higher low structure above around this 91,271, and that, in lower term time frames would look really good. To try back up and take out if this were to put in a high here, which, technically it's just a consolidation. So if it were to put in a high here and head down, we'd want to see this taken out to go test the $96,000 region. But it looks good. The bulls did their work. They had their bids in the right area, and and defended the support zone bottom side. So looks good. Of course, above 96, like I said, we're working our way back up to basically $100,000 is the next really big key area overhead. Then go and test the primary overhead resistance where we got all those close opens and swings into, and about that 101 to 104, and then we can start working our way up. Now, let's look at a few other things. Let's look at the potential for a regular bullish divergence to be thrown here. Is it there? So was this lower low? Yeah, I think I looked at this already. 92,547, 92,620. So lower low on a close. If we do see a low set here, this would be a higher low on RSI. So lower low on a close, higher low on RSI. We get a regular bullish divergence. That is what we want to see. So that's the next thing to really watch out for, and the condition for that to be met for the way that I'm looking at things is above $96,000, right? Some people might have other conditions. They might be working off the swings, right? So, and even then, if they're working off swings, they're working off this swing high to this swing low. It'd be the same area to break that swing downtrend and the closing downtrend as it stands now, or not the closing downtrend. Sorry. This is still, this is a deviation high. So we need to see Bitcoin take this out or make a lower high, higher low, and then take out whatever kind of lower high. Otherwise, above there, it does have to take out essentially, what is this one? What is this one? It is going to be, was the open there and the high at 102,735. Needs to take out on a close, and then we have some structure. We have a structural break back up with a lower low. So what does that mean? It means that things are still in a ranging compression. So let's look at volatility levels of interest here along with this. And you can see that, basis band hanging out just below $96,000. We saw that get spiked into yesterday. We need to see Bitcoin get above it. And of course, $96,000. Do we have any confluences at the upper first? Yeah, I mean, it's right around $98,000. And then above there, we're looking to about $100,000 where the upper second is up here. So yeah, it's a little bit above $100,000, $100 above there. So again, above the upper second, that would be expansion into resistance. We need to see where the upper third is taken out. That's that higher high structure that I just called out to go test 104. And then of course, get that expansive move above the primary overhead resistance to back to the all-time high. So that's the next big thing to watch out for. Let's look at the daily in terms of stochastic momentum. And you'll see that there is a divergence. Now, with the Stoch RSI, I'm not a big fan of playing divergences, but for the stochastic momentum indicator, which is not a Stoch RSI, we can play divergences. And of course, it's the same criteria. Need to see closes above $96,000 for that to actually be actionable, and at least start looking for further upside above 96 to some of those other targets, 98 to 100, then 100 to 101 in the primary resistance area, and then maybe go for that high in that overhead resistance zone in the deep 102 area, and then try for 104. But realistically, we're going to see a momentum pivot shift. If we see today's Tuesday candle, of course, it's still Monday. Tuesday candle is open for me, but above 96,100. That's where we want to see the close come in. 94,372 right now. Again, on test back down in those lower term time frames, you're just looking for higher lows, at least on the 15-minute, and then go from there up the time frames for structural breaks and all that kind of stuff. This is a good reaction off this area for the bulls, but like I said, they're not out of the woods yet. And, our chart is getting a little messy, so let's go ahead and get rid of this. And let's go talk about the weekly. All right. The weekly failed to set a low. All right. The weekly also got a second closure below the upper first standard deviation. The basis band has now moved up to $81,000. So again, below 85, that area, the bottom side, that red line that I've been talking about. So if we fall out of the primary support zone between 92 and 87, um, or 80, what is it, 87, 800 or 88, 800? It's 88, 800 or 88, 700. Sorry, 88, 700 to $92,000. That support, if that fails, we're going for like 85. And if 85 fails, we're going down to probably the low $80,000 region, or $80,000 even. We see the basis band is right there. We see that Bitcoin needs to get above the 97,500. If this candle turns green, this is likely going to be around $98,000. So that would be what I would want to see for closes by the end of the week, is get back above the upper first. Then, of course, set the low. I want to see the low set now above that 102,735. This would then be a higher low structure with that low in at $89,000, of course, provided it does not swing any lower. But because it never closed the low, it was swing high to potentially a swing, a swing low to a swing lower high, or to a swing lower low. But on a closing structure, this swing structure means nothing. It's a consolidation. Some people are going to call it a flag. None of those really matter to me. What matters to me is the closing low being set. Technically, a closing low might come in above 98, 350 or so. But realistically, I need to see closes back above that 102,735. What does that mean for the weekly? Well, the weekly is down here at 50, a 50 read on the BBWP. It's below the simple moving average. We have some of the areas that I've talked about overhead. So again, above, the 104, we're looking at 106 at the close open all-time high in the daily. And then to the wick high there at the 108 area, and then take it $2,000 at a time until we get to 112. So basically 108 to 110, the 110 to 112 being individual areas of interest on the way up. Above 112, I'm looking at 115. And if Bitcoin were to do something like that, oops, I don't need that. I now have more than one arrow. My apologies here. We can just use this one. We would see the upper second adjust in week to around the $115,000. And then from there, as volatility increases on the daily, we're looking like 115 to 120 as a zone, 120 to 125, and then 125 to 130, which just so happens to be the upper third standard deviation. And if we were to bring up that messy chart that we have now created, we'll see that this is right around the 41.4% above the prior cycle high when using a bear market fib pull extension. And in this case, look, 100 and, it's basically within that $5,000 range on higher volatility on the daily if it were to start just legging up towards there. And any closes on the weekly above there, especially above the 128 to 130 as it stands right now, because we're in a cool down on the weekly. This is another consolidation, much like what we saw happening over here. Big expansion, things start to go sideways, the bands start curling in, volatility cools down. Could Bitcoin potentially run further? I would need to see more consolidation. So it might take a little while, even if it does get up here. So be very well aware of that $130,000 area. On high volatility and expanded bands like this, could it continue and re-expand these bands? Yeah, just be very careful. It's dicey. You got to be careful. I suspect that we need a little bit more consolidation and become a little bit more range bound. And maybe if Bitcoin can stay range bound with these clearly defined areas and then play towards the top side, and kind of knock around for a while, it has the potential for alt season to start to really develop in terms of Bitcoin dominance as it relates to the altcoins, have some of them recover some of those overhead resistances that they've been testing and threatening, to try to regain, and finally regain them and start making up ground. Of course, that would be Bitcoin dominance falling in that regard without Bitcoin breaking out. But yeah, we'll see how things go. I mean, the criteria is pretty clear. I am a fan of the bulls today, and I thank you for your service, bears. I took my longs. I'm not fully out of my shorts. I'm still hedged a little bit from the top side of the range, but I did get into some substantial positions here, and I'm willing to cut. And that's one of the reasons why I still kept a portion of my short positions open, because I need to see daily structure change. I need to see a daily trend break again, and at least start entertaining a move back to the top side. If I see that, then the short position is killed. We'll see how that goes. If that's the right decision at that time, obviously I will make that decision with all of the information that's relevant to the time frames that I'm trading. And of course, none of this is financial advice. I'm just trying to give you insight into my process when I'm looking at these things, and evaluating my analysis for how I'm trading. I'm trading a range, and a tighter range with, some areas of interest, obviously a deviation of that range to the highs. And then of course the ever important last stand for the bulls if the bottom of that defined range box that I was just showing is close below. But in this case, the weekly, like I had mentioned, we are just now trying to get a full uptrend here. So we have the higher high. We have lower low closes with a higher low wick. So then we get the trend break with the higher high. We get the higher low. We get the higher high, but we haven't seen a higher low come in. So that's where, we still are looking for on the weekly our next higher low, on a closing basis to really kind of solidify this as an uptrend. Hopefully it chops around. I'm going to be straight up with everyone here. I kind of want to see it to dip back down into that zone and play around for a little bit longer, maybe go sideways, scare the ever-loving crap out of everybody. Now, maybe I'm being a little bit greedy in that regard, but one of the main reasons why for structure is because of the expansion on the bands right now. Now, if it is going to be a sideways and up compression, which is kind of where we're seeing the lower bands start to catch up, we're seeing the upper bands not lose their angle totally, but start to flatten out in terms of volatility, areas of interest. Like if Bitcoin's just going to play up here without getting like a decent compression, I'm not looking for too much more, above 130. Even if it does get there, I wouldn't be looking for too much more before getting some substantial compression in price action or further consolidation. That's where, I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it towards the end of the week when we have some more chart data, right? And we see what happens throughout the week. But that's where, there is a scenario where Bitcoin just kind of grinds this out. This actual run is nothing but a just sideways and up grind kind of thing with these extended periods of downside. And when I say extended periods, it's been, we're working on our fifth weekly candle, right? So we've got a good month of price action here. And that's where, it takes a while for things to play out. So, but relative to the longer term time frames, shorter time periods relative to those longer time periods like the monthly, the momentum. So I need to see in-trend bearish divergence. One of the reasons why I was pointing out the structure here is because we need to see in-trend bearish divergence with this new trend forming. I highly doubt that we are going to take out the last higher low, and that's all the way down here at 58.8 and 62.8 respectively on a close. So 58.8 on the swing, 62.8 on the close. I know there's some people looking for 60K. I'm going to say good luck. We have the lower first down here ready to catch things at around 65. So could it get close? Maybe. If it were to just completely draw down and start to go into a different structure and want to take out that area, is it a possibility? Anything's possible, but I don't think it's the most likely possibility. If anything, we'd look for a lower high or equal highs and then take out this higher low and then go for those areas. But that's just, me spitballing at this point. This is still a bullish structure. So I don't see the point in entertaining that until it's actionable. Not that it's an invalid thesis. I mean, anything can happen, but it just is a little bit less likely to happen from here. A further drawdown is still very, very much available for the bears if they can bust through that support to the downside, and then sure, great stuff, right? But not really of interest to me. And one of the big things is this stochastic momentum pivot is now at $107,000. Interesting. It's not going to go in the oversold zone. This is a very incorrect reading at negative $40,000 to $41,000. In this case, still crossing back up on the weekly at 107. So unless it like goes up and beats that out to the upside like by Sunday, which is also possible. I understand that, bears. Um, if conditions are met, it's definitely possible and in the cards. But this more looks like it's just going to be knocking around in a much wider range. And for the bulls, we want to see Bitcoin hanging on to the top side of a wider range like this. So that's going to do it for me today. I wish you all a wonderful week ahead. Keep a very close eye on this price action. I think that I think the buyback was a good one for the bulls. It provided for some good trading, Sunday into Monday, and now it's time to be a little bit on the defensive and not like full bull mode. This is still, we had a deviation high. It's a lower low. We need to see a low set, and then we need to see what develops from there on the charts. So, bulls, just beware, and bears, beware, because ranging price action can kill you before it moves, right? It can kill your positions before it actually makes its move, right? So that's the big thing, is just be on the defensive whether you're bullish or bearish. And when things actually do break in earnest on expansion, that's when we can be confident or more confident in the direction resolving to the upside or the downside. So we're not there yet. And it looks as though, while the bias is to the downside still, it looks as though the bulls have a shot here. They just need to take it. And that's what I'm going to leave you with. You have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe. And with all of that being said, Landy out. See you on Wednesday.